So if you are about to get a psychic reading, either from myself or a different psychic, you're probably feeling a little nervous, a little unprepared. It is totally normal. In this video, I'm going to walk you through some common ways that you can just get ready for a reading with a psychic. So welcome, my name is Lauren. I am a psychic, I'm a medium, animal communicator, and I do lots of private readings, and I get this question pretty often of like, how can I prepare? So I thought I'd make a video on it. So that being said though, please know that every psychic is different. I'm trying to make this as generalized as possible so that it kind of fits into any situation, but you always want to follow up with the psychic that you are meeting with to see if they have any special different things that they do. Now, for those of you who are readers out there, I think this is equally as important because it might throw some things at you to chew on for updating your disclaimer, your website details, your services, just so that you make sure when a client is coming to you, you know that you've given them everything so that there's no confusion. So if you're still kind of in the finding phase of, searching for psychics, like always trust your gut. Make sure that the psychics you are looking out for are ethical, that they are being very clear, very upfront, that they don't have like any of those like red flags that make you go, ooh, I don't know, this feels a little strange. Always trust your intuition. I find that like you will just feel called to certain psychics. You might not feel called at all to me, and that's totally okay. Go to the people that feel good for you. So when you're preparing for a reading, I just want to say, try to ease your fears as much as possible. And I'm going to do that by just kind of telling you what this looks like. Like truly, most psychic readings, even mediumship readings, they're just a conversation. Like you're literally talking back and forth with the psychic. Sometimes they're pausing to kind of tune in and connect. Sometimes they're asking you questions. Sometimes they're just talking and talking and talking because they're getting whatever comes through. Like I always joke that it's not anything to be afraid of because I just talk a lot. Now, some psychics, they might start your reading by kind of giving you some information, having a little bit of small talk. I always start by explaining the process and just some extra disclaimers, I can be wrong. Sometimes I will lead people through a short meditation or just a verbal intention setting. Lately I've been asking my clients to take a deep breath with me, just get centered and present. But every psychic is different. Some psychics will just jump right into it, asking you questions. I know that a lot of psychics I've seen in the past also don't want any information from you up front, and they'll just start reading you, and then they'll maybe go to questions later. But just know there's some sort of intro usually, and then the bulk of your time is left for a reading, and then usually at the end, you should be disconnecting with that psychic. That's to make sure they're not taking your stuff home, your energy, you aren't being left with any spirits, stuff like that. It's really just to separate the energy, go back to normal. So hopefully that just eases some fears going into this. One thing I want you to prepare by doing is just look into the logistics of everything. Make sure if the psychic is not clear, which they should be on all of this, again, readers, make sure you're clear on all of these things, when are you meeting? What time? Looking into the time zones. If your psychic is from somewhere else and you're calling them or doing a video call, it's making sure that the date, the time, the logistics are all very clear. When are you meeting? Where are you meeting? Some psychics are in person. Do you have the address figured out? Make sure all the logistics are nailed down so that you're not an hour beforehand, wait, what am I doing? I don't even know when I'm meeting them. Do they have a video link? Sometimes they'll call you. Just make sure, and again, most psychics will give you all of this information. Make sure that you have that. Again, I send about a 24-hour email reminder ahead of somebody's reading to remind them of all of these things in case they missed it the first time. Readers, it doesn't hurt to send out lots of notifications because a lot of times people don't read them. So you can send those and extra make sure that they know. Now, if you're doing a phone or a video call, especially those video calls that are over the internet, check your equipment ahead of time. Make sure that your headphones work, make sure your speakers work, make sure your camera's working. You don't want to lose reading time because you are trying to fumble around with technology. So if you know what you're doing, awesome. But if it's your first time using a Zoom link or a Google Meets link. You can always like play around with it ahead of your reading. And again, that's where I say look up those logistics up front, because if that psychic only does Zoom readings and like you are just like, I don't even want to bother figuring out Zoom, maybe find another psychic who's willing to do a phone call. The psychic that you're seeing should also let you know if they like want photos, any information from you. Sometimes I just ask people to think of like their questions in advance. They don't have to send those to me, but I usually ask them to do that just so that they're thinking ahead of their reading of like ish what they want me to tune into. So they're not like waiting until the last 5 minutes of the reading and they realize, oh my gosh, I have all of these questions. Some psychics like pictures, others don't even want you to bring any of that. Some psychics have rules with recording as well. Some psychics will let you record the sessions, some will not. Some do it for you. I used to do it for my clients, but I no longer do that. Overall, just double check all these logistics. You don't want to be stressing about this and having it like affect your energy before the reading, or, you know, completely miss your reading and like not be able to get like a refund. Oh, that's something else to check. Refund, cancellation policies. You always just want to be aware of those just in case something happens and you kind of know ahead of time what's expected. Now, the next thing you can do for a reading, you can just prep your energy. And don't, like, some people get too stressed out about this. Don't feel like you have to like be super stressed. It's really just making sure that you're showing up present. Like, don't be typing on your computer at the same time you're receiving a reading. Don't be walking around your house like doing chores while you're doing a reading. Like, I think that, you know, anything you could do maybe like 5 minutes beforehand is awesome. So that could be meditating. It could be slowing your breath down. It can just be getting present, putting your phone away, listening to some relaxing music. You don't have to do any of these things, but just know for the reader, it makes it a lot easier to read you if you are present, you're open. You can even like visualize yourself. Like, you can visualize like opening up a door and saying like, hey, I'm allowing this psychic to read me here in about 5 minutes. I'm opening up my energy. If you imagine that there was like a bubble around you, it's kind of like allowing that psychic to come into that bubble. Again, don't worry about like being perfect about this. It's the intention alone that's helpful. You can even say out loud ahead of time, like, I am willing to let Lauren read me for our 30-minute reading. You can also sit down and invite your spiritual team to come in and chat with you during the reading, or chat with the psychic. So you can just kind of like sit, visualize. You're like, hey, spiritual team, guides. Maybe you don't know who they are, but you can say, guides, whoever's out there looking out for me, family members, loved ones in spirit, this animal that I want to talk to, living or dead, this family member, living or dead, that I want to talk to. Please come in, chat with me, chat with this psychic for this reading. You can say that out loud. You can say it in your head. Again, you could like visualize a door, inviting them into that energy. Again, a psychic should do all of this for you. This is not like your responsibility. This is just optional, because I do find that some people are like, I want to make this the best it can be. I want to be as helpful as I can. So just imagine any way that you can open up your energy and give permission. And sometimes psychics at the beginning will also ask permission, which I know kind of seems silly. You're like, well, I booked the reading, but that is a way that they can connect to your energy better. Another reason why we want you to kind of like get centered, get, you know, calm, is that, you know, when we're afraid of the psychic, when we're afraid of the reading in general, and again, it's okay if you're a little bit afraid. Like, you don't have to be completely 100% perfect, but just know that when you are afraid, you're kind of unintentionally blocking yourself. You're afraid of the situation. You kind of go into protect mode. You're protecting your energy, and you're like, ooh, you're putting a little bit of distance between you and that psychic, and in a way, you're kind of like creating a block that says, I don't want to be read. I'm afraid of this. I don't want to be read. There's a wall here. I'm blocking you. Now, again, a psychic should be able to know how to push past this and kind of like ask you to open up, and they should have techniques for how to do this. If you're a reader out there and you're like, what? I have a master class, I teach all of that there. But they should know how to kind of like open you up and allow yourself. But again, any of this that you can do ahead of time to help them out is awesome. So you can even just journal for a second or just like talk out loud to yourself. Like, why am I afraid right now? Why am I so afraid? Oh, maybe I'm afraid of the information that's going to come through. Maybe I'm afraid that I'm going to go to hell for this. And you can even say that to the psychic up front to kind of move those fears to the side and not let them affect your reading. But again, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be afraid. Now, my next tip is to prep your questions or your topics ahead of time. Now, your topic can literally just be like, I want to know about my life path right now and where I'm headed, and that's like all you have, and that's totally fine. However, again, this is more to address like the people that don't know at all what they want. Like maybe you're being gifted a reading, maybe you just really like the psychic, but you don't exactly know what you want out of the reading. But I find that it's helpful to have a very clear like, hey universe, this is what I'm looking for, or hey psychic, this is ish what I'm looking for. It can be as specific as having a list of questions. I don't mind that. Some psychics might not like that, but I often sometimes expect people to like have a list of questions. I don't read into those before the reading because I don't want to let my bias affect me. I want to read them right there in the moment so that you're getting my first impressions. So I always say like bring those questions or send them to me, but if people send them to me, I purposely don't look at them until like the actual reading time. Now, you should not technically have to give a psychic anything to do a reading. I mean, maybe your name and like your voice for them to connect to. But in theory, a psychic should be able to fill a 30-minute reading with or without you asking questions. So I do want to say that because sometimes it's a red flag if psychics are constantly psychic fishing, asking you questions, then therefore like giving information that's psychic that's not actually psychic based on your questions. So just know that psychic fishing is a thing, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. If you're like, what is that? I have an older video on it. You can check it out. Psychics, if that makes you nervous and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do a full reading for 30 minutes, masterclass will help you out there. Just know though that like sometimes psychics do ask questions for more context or to read into the energy. Like sometimes if I'm stuck and I've given everything that I've gotten around the situation, I might ask for like more context or like the name of somebody that's involved, or like, hey, can you give me the name of the two jobs that you're thinking about? Just so I can use that to like tune into the energy more. So there's like a gray area there of like, ooh, are they using it to like psychic fish, or are they using it to actually connect to you or the energy of the thing that you're asking about? I explained that in a whole video kind of about like how much should you give a psychic beforehand. If you're really like, I want to be as prepared as possible, you can also check out that video. And again, don't get stressed out about making the most perfect questions. Again, the psychic should be able to take your questions and make them the best they can be. Like a lot of times people will say like, will I get this next job? And often I'll still answer that question, but I'll change it up into how can you get this next job? What are the obstacles in your way? What are some of the things that are working for you right now? So like a good psychic will learn to kind of ask other things to help support that, to get you to kind of what you're trying to get. Ultimately though, avoid yes or no questions if you really want to get technical with this. Or should I or shouldn't I, because those are yes or no questions too. This is also another good point about checking out a psychic before you get to them, because sometimes people will come to me and be like, can you read my palm? Or can you use a crystal ball? I got that last week. And it's like, no, I don't do those. So not every psychic knows every single tool. So like I, for example, have never read with rods. I never have, never probably will. Pendulums, I have a pendulum, but I don't read with it. And some people will come to me and be like, can you use this specific tool? And sometimes I'll be like, nope, I don't use that. This is how I do my readings. So always check ahead of time, because you might even go to a psychic wanting to talk to a dead relative, and they might tell you, oh, I'm not a medium, which is a different thing. Mediums talk to dead people, psychics don't always. Some psychics do, like me, I'm both, but not all psychics want to talk to dead people. So yeah, 2 more things. The first being set your expectations. Normally. I find that when people set their expectations way too high, when you expect perfection out of a psychic, you will be sorely disappointed. Psychics are not 100% right 100% of the time. If they say this, big red flag. You have to kind of go into psychic readings understanding that the person across from you is still human. They are going to try their absolute best to give you the most accurate information as possible, but at the same time, they might be having an off day. Some things might come through and it just doesn't make sense. I find that like, you know, the majority of my readings, I might be like 80 to 90% right, and then maybe 10 to 20% of the stuff that comes through, maybe it's just off. That's normal. That's normal. Most people walk away from a reading feeling like the majority of it was right. Maybe there was a few things that just did not quite make sense. That's a normal reading. If you walk away feeling like, whoa, like 90% of that fell off, that's probably a red flag. Maybe there was something going on there between you and that psychic, and maybe check out a different psychic next time. And another part of setting these expectations are understanding that there might be things that come through that you don't want to hear. And that's something too that you can decide later if that felt correct to you or did not feel correct. But I do find that sometimes during psychic readings, you do hear the hard truths or the tough love. Again, it should all be loving and helpful. It should never be like demeaning or leaving, like it shouldn't leave you feeling icky in any way. However, I do find that like sometimes you need to hear something from your spirit guides and you maybe have been choosing not to pay attention to it. And so sometimes those come through. When you're open to everything that's coming through, you can always just take it in and decide what to do with it later. At the end of the day, you want to take a psychic reading, take it in with your opinions, maybe your friends' opinions. You shouldn't give it any more weight than anything else. You should always go see like trusted professionals. It should just be like another piece of the puzzle that you use to make a decision moving forward. But again, that's why I always say trust your own gut. And that's why I always think like nobody can read you better than yourself, which is why I encourage everyone to like learn their psychic abilities. If you're just now hearing that and you're like, what? Everyone is psychic. If you want to learn more, check out my YouTube. Now my last thing, please be kind. Please be kind. Please do not shoot the messenger is what I always say. Again, I find that this is very rare circumstances. Again, I feel like the majority of the people watching this are not going to be the people coming in to attack a psychic, but it does happen. And just know that they are relaying that information the best they can. They are still human. If at the end of the day they were wrong, you can leave and be like, cool, that did not work for me, never coming back. Also, other ways that you can be respectful, like when you are approaching the end of your time, be mindful of that. Don't go over by asking lots and lots of questions. Now, that being said as well, be aware of their follow-up policy. Like I know some people that I work with, they make you wait like 6 months before they see you. I usually recommend like 2-3 months. Some people are happy to see you again next day. That's kind of a red flag for me, but it's not a hard and fast rule. I know I've booked people within the same week because we just truly did not get through everything, and they had questions that were all over the board, and they just had a lot that they wanted to know, and that was totally fine. I do have a video as well about like how often should you see a psychic. That might be worth checking out as well. Now again, please don't stress out about these things. I feel like if you're listening and you're being mindful, you're probably already doing great. Most psychics will not like fault you for trying your best. So for my readers, make sure that as you were listening to this video, that you go update your disclaimer, you go update your website, your services page. Like, do you have an email that gets sent out right before a reading? Or like when somebody books, like confirmation email, do you have like a FAQ? You don't have to have all of these things, but the clearer you can be upfront, the more of this you will avoid. I will say, like, when I first started, I had so many more issues around like people not being prepared, people not knowing what to expect from me, and that was my fault for not being clear on that up front. But the more clear I am and the more that I have it in 10 places and you got to check a box saying you read it, you know, like I feel like it happens a lot less now. So to wrap this up, psychics should be able to help you and explain all of this up front to you. If they've already like well explained this, awesome. I would say they're a great ethical psychic, but you might have to like double check on this because maybe they just forgot to like explain it, or maybe you missed it somewhere. Now that you know, just let it go. Because seriously, the best thing you can do, be relaxed, be open, be excited, and just be ready and centered and open for the reading. Now, I do have a question for those of you who are readers out there. What else do you say is like super helpful? If a client is about to come to you, what do you ask them to do? Please leave it in the comments down below, because that's very helpful for all of us to know, okay, what else do psychics really like you to be prepared and come with. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future reading. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Alrighty, bye.